Hello and welcome to the Vuelta CV Feminas, the UCI 1.1 race, the 6th edition of this race, and we are going to be bringing you the live coverage for the finale as the women complete the 93-kilometre course out here. We begun in Vetera this morning, about 9:20 local time, very fresh conditions, and we will finish in the city of Valencia. Here's a little look at some of the local area here. Beautiful area of Spain. Very well liked among many pro riders as a training location, especially at this time of year. And here's a little look at today's course. So beginning in Vetera, the course climbed gradually this morning before reaching the first climb, a third category climb. That was our first categorized climb of the day, before going back up the other side of the climb for the first category climb. And then it is a very fast downhill run in and flat finish in the city of Valencia. And there is your course profile for this morning's race, a total of 1,100 metres of climbing over the 93-kilometre race that we've got here this morning. Just seeing some shots from the team presentation. Early start here in Spain, just 5 degrees this morning. The race beginning at 9:20 local time. My name's Joanna Roustel. I'm joined here this morning by Danny Rowe, who's going to be my co-commentator, bringing you the live coverage for the remainder of this race. So thank you for joining me, Danny. We're just seeing the shots here of the team presentation this morning. Riders working out what they're going to wear today. See lots of riders opting for the gilets, long-sleeved arm warmers. Just seeing a few shots here at the start of some of the local VIPs getting ready to start the race. Ready to cut the ribbon. I'm just going to keep a bit of the ribbon by the looks of things. And we are ready to get the race underway. So this was the neutralised start this morning. As I said, I'm joined here by Danny Rowe. So what are these moments like, Danny, before the start of the race, behind the car here, before the race has actually started proper?
They're always super, super nervous, especially at the start of the season, where everyone comes in with a lot of nerves and question marks about their form, and they're getting used to riding in that peloton again, really, really bunched together tightly. And behind the car, there's a lot of brakes, slamming on of brakes. I always tried to be at the front of the peloton when we lined up, especially early season, just to take those nerves away, having more control, being towards the front of the punch.
So that was the start of the race this morning. You can just see it's 9 degrees there, and we're about to bring you some live pictures. So this is the head of the race at the Vuelta CV Feminas, the UCI 1.1 race that will be finishing in Valencia. We've got 33 kilometres to go, and we have a breakaway of 3 riders with 43 seconds over the peloton. Now, Danny, these are 3 big names, riders that we were all looking at, talking about before the start of this race. Cedrine Kabul, Julie Bago, and Anderson there as well of Liv Alula Jaco. And here is a shot of the bunch chasing behind. You can see they're starting to get organised here at the minute, but with 32 kilometres to go, 43-second gap. What are you thinking to this one, Danny?
I'm thinking it's looking good for our breakaway at this moment in time. This group behind, of course, will be chasing, and Movistar, the big team that have missed out here in this breakaway. It was all about the Frontiera climb, wasn't it? It's a 5-kilometre climb at 9.2%, and that is what exploded the race last year. We had a small group containing Lippert, Mackay, Noskova, Koppenberg and Magnaldi, and it looks like something of a similar vein has happened in this year's edition, where the best climbers essentially have broken away from the peloton. But again, Movistar, the big team here that have missed out, but it is Human Powered Health on the front, currently trying to bring this one back. But it looks like the 3 riders up ahead are riding really well together, with, of course, shared motivation to get all the way to the finish line.
Yeah, well, if you're going to pick a breakaway size, what would you say is sort of the golden number that you want in that breakaway? I'm thinking 3 is probably a pretty good bet.
Yeah, it is a good bet. I mean, 3, 4, 5 maybe max. And obviously there's one member of each team. You haven't got 2 riders from one team, which makes it easier because it means that they can share that workload without kind of question marks on games being played. Last year, of course, we had Liana Lippert and Floortje Mackay, and that strength in numbers really gave them that advantage where they could play games of counter-attacking essentially until one of them, and that lucky one last year was Floortje Mackay, got away. But here we have 3 riders from 3 individual teams, separate teams, which means they can all ride as hard as they can, share that workload. No one can hide in a scenario like this. So yeah, 3, 4, 5 I would say would be a perfect number for a breakaway. It's still going to be tough, but in a group of 3 you've still got probably around a minute and a half of duration to get back into the line and recover before finding yourself on the front again, to try and keep driving the line forward.
Just seeing some shots of the local area here. Very good viewpoint there for those spectators. Confirmation there of our first 3 riders over the first climb that we had today, the 3rd category climb. And then the first category climb, as you just mentioned, that was the one with the really steep sections, over 9%. It was Julie Bago who was the first over the climb there. Now, she was the junior, or is the reigning junior world champion. She won that title in Glasgow last summer. So this is this her first elite race of the season? And she's in a breakaway here, looking towards a podium position. This is a really exciting young rider there for Cofidis.
Yeah, and all 3 of these riders are super young. The oldest actually being Caroline Anderson at 22, and it's always super exciting when we start the season and we look at the young riders that have made a step up again. Generally in the off-season, the younger riders have more of a chance to make that step forward because they haven't had those years and years of kilometres and training under their belt. We generally do see kind of that bigger improvement when it comes to the early season racing. So it's great to see these riders racing so aggressively. They've clearly got the form, because if we look at a few of the pre-race interviews that we had earlier on today, a lot of the riders were saying actually there's not many tactics that come into play when we look at a course like this because of the severity of the Frontiera climb. It almost neutralizes the race. A lot of the riders would be scared to do anything before the climb, and the climb shows the form. It shows the form of these riders, who's climbing well, and clearly today these riders are the riders with the best legs.
Well, absolutely. There's no hiding on a climb like that. The Strava Queen of the Mountain time is around 17.5 minutes. It was Clara Koppenberg who set that time last year. So already anything that's sort of 15 to 20 minutes climbing-wise is always going to leave absolutely nowhere to hide. Just seeing shots of the peloton here. What remains of the peloton, of course, is looking like we've got about 20 to 25 riders here, and they've got that time gap now down to 33 seconds. We are under the 30k mark, but as you will have seen from the graphic that has been on the screen a couple of times now, it is a very fast run into the finish. It is all slightly downhill or flat. There doesn't seem to be anything in the way of kicks up at all. At 29k to go here, we're still descending, actually. We're not quite down at sea level. Of course, we will finish at sea level in Valencia. But these fast roads here, would you say they're really sort of playing to the hands of the breakaway? Or if you look at this wide shot here, you can see these big open roads. Is this playing more into the hands of the peloton, Danny?
Yeah, I'd say it's playing more into the hands of the peloton. When we look at the success of a breakaway, generally it's out of sight, out of mind, really helps for that breakaway to you know, I guess scupper the motivation of that chase behind, because if you can see those riders up ahead, even if it's a gap of 30, 40 seconds, it really does help you with that carrot to chase, that impetus to chase. It is also a headwind finish coming into the finish. It's not much wind. There's around 5 to 6 kilometers an hour, so that also isn't conducive for that breakaway to stay away. The group behind will be able to share that workload. However, this group of three, this trio, is clearly really motivated, head down. They're working well together, they're cooperating together, collaborating in that chase behind. We saw Cedrine Cabal going back to the team car. She would have been talking to the director sportif about who's behind, what are their options behind if this does come back, how her legs are feeling, just sussing out the tactics coming into the final. Because as I said earlier, there wouldn't have been a huge amount of tactics that came into play, I wouldn't have guessed, in the team meeting, but it would have been all about the assessment of what was happening on the road after that climb, which would have been really, really important for a lot of these teams.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's all about that decision-making. Now, I can see at least 3 teammates of Cedrine Cabal from the Territories at WNT Pro Cycling team who are in that chase group. Of course, they'll be there or thereabouts. They'll be towards the front, but they won't be contributing to that chase. Will they be trying to hamper it at all, or will they just be ready for any sort of counter moves?
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of run a little bit of interference, but I would say they'd probably sit back at this moment in time, let the other teams do the chasing, and then maybe if it got a little bit closer, try and run a bit of polite interference, we like to say, into the front, where, you know, you might just tap through. You wouldn't put the brakes on at the front, but you might just kind of tap through steadily just to disrupt that chase a little bit, that momentum that peloton will have behind.
They were talking about that momentum for that peloton behind, and we're now down to 20 seconds. So it was over 40 seconds when we first came on air just a few kilometres ago, just 6 kilometres ago. Now hovering around 21, 22 seconds with 27k to go. As I was saying, it is a very fast run into the finish here. We've got 3 very strong riders, but as you were saying, Danny, it has been the terrain that has really dictated this race with that monster climb in the middle. And it's 3 very strong climbers that are away, and they aren't necessarily the strongest riders on this sort of terrain. Whereas behind it is a big chase at the moment. And I'm looking here, it's human-powered health who seem to be consistently on the front. But you mentioned yourself earlier the Movistar team, who we can see in second place at the moment. And they are the big team. They are the local. They are the Spanish team and the World Tour team, with the favourites coming into this race. The defending champion of this event, Floortje Mackaij, who won this event this time last year. How much is the onus on Movistar to be the ones chasing in this situation? At the moment, to me, it looks like it's human-powered health who are doing all the work. However, we need to ask the question of the Movistar team. They are the World Tour team, local team. How much work are they going to do? So we're looking at 26 kilometres to go now, down to 17 seconds. And what are you thinking about the Movistar team here then, Danny?
I think they're playing it really well, actually. You can see Jelena Erich there sat in second place, and they had Arlena Sierra just sat nicely at the back of this chasing group behind. We know how fast Arlena Sierra is in a finish like today, a pan flat finish. She's a very versatile rider. She's clearly had the legs to get over the climb. I think they're playing a clever game here. They can see that the gap is tumbling, it's coming down. It's a very controllable gap here, but they're letting human-powered health do all the work. They have been the team on the front for consistently since we came on air, and actually they're just biding their time. They're there, they're showing their presence, but actually they're not using up too much energy. You can see them communicating in the radio, which we know is key. So right now, I don't think they're doing anything wrong. I think they're actually playing a very, very smart game.
And at the moment, we're only really seeing one rider from human-powered health who's doing all the work here. So they're not got a multiple number of riders sort of sharing the work on the front, which I think also, I would say, is possibly bad news for the breakaway, because, you know, once you get 2 or 3 riders that are doing through and off on the front of this group, that gap could come tumbling down. Just having a look towards the back of this group here, just seeing some of our other riders that are here. I've seen a few riders from Cofidis, a few riders from the Arkea B&B Hotels team as well. But overall, we are looking at a very, very reduced bunch. 20 teams taking the start today. 5 World Tour teams, 11 Conti teams and 4 club teams. Here is our French national champion, Victoire Berthaud. She was an earlier attacker in this race on the first of the climbs. Was away solo on her own for a while before she was caught, but racing very aggressively here today. A few of the riders here at the back with the aim to hang on to this group here. Absolutely no need to do any work if you're in one of the smaller teams here today. Kilometers to go, 24 seconds. So we saw that gap come tumbling down from over 40 down to 20 very quickly, but now it seems to be holding around that 25-second mark. Would you say this is a tactic from the peloton behind to try and hold it at that gap? Do they want to sort of hang them out to dry, or do they want to catch them as quickly as possible?
Yeah, generally we try and you want to catch them as late as possible, actually, because if the catch is made too early, it just opens up the opportunities for the teams to counter-attack. And what that does then, it limits the numbers of your teammates. If you don't have those strength in numbers to be able to follow those counter-attacks, that's when you can, find yourself in a little bit of trouble for the finish. We know how powerful strength in numbers has in a finish like today, so I think they'll just want to keep them around this sort of 20-second mark. We can see it hovering. It did come down to around 16 seconds. It's come up a little bit now to that 26-second mark, but you can see Jelena Ereš, who has come onto the front for the Movistar team. We were questioning the tactics of Movistar. We saw Human Powered Health doing the majority of the work. We can see Sarah Tizet now coming to the front. Of course, they have Sadrine Cabal in that breakaway, so they'll just be marshalling things at the front. You can see some of the riders taking on a little bit of fuel because they will want to be able to, they will have to be attentive if this does come back together, but they're also doing the right thing because they have to be there, present at the front, to be able to follow any moves that might be made. In a parkour like this, I would suspect a rider not to try and jump across to a move like this. It will be about sharing that workload on the front as a team to try and bring this back together.
Now, if we look at the route in the run into the finish, we've said it's either slightly downhill or flat as we approach Valencia. But around 20k to go, there is a turn. They will make a left-hand turn. Then not long after that, they'll make a right-hand turn. There's sort of a few twists and turns as we approach the city. But at the moment, it is this big, wide, straight, open road, which, you know, is not great for the breakaway riders here.
No, it's not. Like we said before, you know, the peloton or the reduced peloton that we've got now have got that carrot to chase. The open roads means that they're very much in sight and in the mind of the chasing peloton. That motivation becomes even higher when you can see riders in front of you. It makes that gap seem a lot smaller than it is, although they will be getting aboard from that following motorbike or that motorbike in front of the riders here. They will be shown the time gaps, and when they're coming down slightly as well, it makes you just want to kick on ever so slightly to keep that gap coming down. But these three riders are riding super well together. They've got a few roundabouts to contend with, and like you say, with around 15 kilometers to go, it gets a little bit more technical with some consecutive twists and turns as we come closer to that finish line. But even the finish itself, it's very wide roads. There's a left-hand turn that comes with around 400 meters to go with a very fast run into the finish. So if this was to come back together, we haven't seen all of the riders in that chasing group, but we have seen Arlena Sierra, who sat very quietly at the back, biding her time for the team of Movistar, who we know has a very fast finish on her. She's also already had a podium place this year in the first stage of the Mallorca Challenge. That was 3 individual races, but she finished super strongly there for the team.
Yes, we're just seeing Movistar doing some work on the front of this group. Now, I think it was Jelena Ereš who was the rider who was putting in a turn. So it's been Human Powered Health for a very long time. But now Movistar are also coming to the front. And for them, for their team, they've had Annemiek van Vleuten as part of their team for many years. And, you know, what sort of hold does that leave now? And how does it work in terms of establishing who's going to be the team leader going forward into this season?
Yeah, I think it is a big hole. Obviously, she had such a powerful presence in the team, and I think a lot of the teams would have stepped up with, you know, just having her presence in the team. I know, for example, when I rode in a team with Marianne Vos, it made you all just want to do your job, you know, even better to have such a role model, such a superstar within your team. However, what it does do is opens up realm of opportunities for all of these riders who are going to want to start the season on great form. You know, I think when we're looking at early season, there's lots to consider when we're thinking about the motivation of a rider to be going well, and without the likes of Annemiek van Vleuten, who would have essentially called the shots within that team of Movistar as to if it was a race that suited her, she would be going for it, and there would be no questions asked. She did like to give teammates opportunities, but ultimately she was the best rider in the team, especially when the parkour went uphill. So again, these riders are now going to want to put their hands up and start off strongly. So ultimately they get the nod. They got the nod to be leader, but it will take a little bit of working out with the team who have had Annemiek in their roster for the last few years.
So we have 19 kilometres to go and 19 seconds for our breakaway of 3 riders here at the Vuelta CV Feminas, here coming in to finish in the city of Valencia in Spain. We have got a strong peloton behind, well, a very reduced peloton behind, putting in a lot of work here. The human-powered health team and Movistar have been coming to the front as well to make some contribution to that chase. We've got 3 riders from the Ceratizat WNT Pro Cycling team with a teammate up the road in the form of Cedrine Kabul, who is working very hard in our breakaway trio at the moment, alongside our junior world champion, Julie Bago, just 19 years old for the Cofidis team, and Caroline Anson, the eldest rider, 22 years old, in our breakaway of 3. Just seeing riders further back in this group at the moment, we've got a few of our club teams who are also taking part in this event. So it's 5 World Tour teams here, 11 Conti teams and 4 club teams taking part here today. But a huge opportunity if you're in a smaller team to race against some of the biggest name riders in the world without the might of the likes of SD Works in the race, Lidl Trek, those sort of teams, and a real opportunity for perhaps one of the smaller teams to try and show yourself.
Oh, absolutely. It really is a great chance to be able to do just that. Get your jersey out there and show what you can do as a rider without, like you said, that, I guess, pressure of not having the other teams, those big teams, SD Works, in a race. Show what you can do. Don't be afraid to attack and show yourself. But I think, unfortunately, with that Frontiera climb, it's kind of, again, neutralised the opportunity to be able to do that somewhat. We did have some early moves, but now we've just got a big chase on our hands trying to close this gap down to these 3 leaders. And we talk about 10 seconds per 10 kilometres of racing for a gap to be able to close. So it's going to be really touch and go here.
It certainly is, making it a very exciting finale here coming into Valencia. This is exactly what we wanted. By no means a foregone conclusion for this breakaway or for the peloton, who still have a lot of work to do. So, as we were saying, now here we are back to our chase group for this women's event. Just looking, there's a few riders from Cofidis in this group. I've just seen Victoire Berthaud, our French national champion, who's in that group, just sort of towards on the left of your shot here with the blue, white and red Cofidis jersey as national champion. She was one of our early attackers. She's just following the wheels at the moment, poised, ready if an opportunity is to come later on. Human-powered health here, the ones doing all the work on the front. Helena Erich for Movistar is right there. She has been contributing as well to this chase, but we're now up to 22 seconds and 16k to go. Psychologically, would you say now for the breakaway, seeing that kilometres to go, edging towards that 15k to go, soon we're going to be at 10k to go, would you say that adds sort of extra impetus to them in the breakaway?
Yeah, definitely. I think the closer you get to the finish line, the more you start to believe that breakaway is going to be possible to get to the line. Ultimately, in this scenario, you can never ever give up as part of this trio. They will be super motivated by their director sportif in the car. They'll be yelled at in their radio to just try and keep it driving forward. It's all or nothing in this scenario. There's no energy that's going to be tried to be kept here. They are just going to want to keep this group away from catching them. So I think, yeah, like you say, Joe, the closer and closer they get to the finish, the more possible they will believe this will be to stay away to the line.
And we can see the roads here, this not quite so clearly on this shot, but you can see we are having more twists and turns in the route here as we come in towards the city, so less of the big wide open roads where you would be able to see the the service cars and the breakaway up ahead of you. So a little bit of a race. This is about the only meters of climbing we've got in the finale of this race. This is really it if you do want a launch pad coming in towards the finish. But yeah, a few sort of sweeping turns here, not really technical, but enough to just about get out of sight.
Yeah, we just saw sight of Ana Santesteban there, and I'm quite surprised not to see her in that group of 3 over the top of that climb. She's been climbing really well already this season. She's part of the Laboral Kutza team, who have got a big ambition to be World Tour in the next couple of years. So a huge signing for that team to have Ana Santesteban within their roster. But you can see here how much more technical these roads are becoming. So this will play into the hands of this trio, not just to be out of sight, out of mind, but the fact that they can take their own lines through these corners, twists and turns, and get up to speed as quickly as possible.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, every time we have these twists and turns, when you're in a bigger group, little gaps can open up and you can be out the saddle sort of chasing to try and get that wheel in front of you. But with just 3 of you, far easier to work together. 15k to go now, 17 to 18 seconds on the clock. Really touch and go if this chase group are going to be able to catch our 3 breakaway runners. As I say that we're now down to 15 seconds, despite the twists and turns here, but we have now got to that 14-kilometre to go mark. We've got 3 very young riders here. 2 of them are 22 years old, and then Julie Bago, our youngest, at 19 years old, our junior world champion from last year's World Championship road race in Glasgow. Her first race of the season on the road as a senior, and already at a head of affairs. So again, very twisty here. You can see the technical parts of this course coming in now. Once again, as you're saying, playing into the hands of these breakaway riders. Technical corners, and just getting out of sight on bends like this, though it is agonisingly close at 15 seconds to go. But as you said, Danny, it's not over till it's over. Classic example of that being the Paris-Roubaix race last year. Alison Jackson taking the victory, and that was so touch and go all the way to the end. But it was about that belief and just keeping going, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's exactly what you have to do. You know, you'll know the time gaps. You know that the bunch is breathing down your neck in this scenario when they're coming into the last 15 kilometres of racing. But like you said, anything can happen in bike racing, and it might be that they get within 10 seconds and actually think, okay, the chase is done, kind of sit up, and then that gives the opportunity for that breakaway to eke that gap out just a little bit more. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen in this scenario, just because of the strength and depth of the riders and the composition of riders we've got behind, especially because the team of Movistar, who you could argue are the biggest team coming into this race, have missed out on this group, and I'll be very surprised if they don't put another rider up the front. At the moment, it's only Jelena Erich that is contributing to the chase, who we've seen the majority of the time being Human Powered Health, who have taken it up. I think we'll see more of the Movistar riders coming to the front.
Yes, so I believe they have Olivia Barrel in that group as well. And of course, Elena Sierra, who you've mentioned, and Jelena Erich, who has been the one up there doing some of the work. We have some riders from the Ceratizat WNT. I've seen at least 3 of those jerseys in that group. Of course, they're not going to be contributing to the chase with their teammate, who is up in this breakaway here, but they will be poised and ready, saving their energy, not contributing to that chase if there is an opportunity to go for a counter move.
Yeah, they've also got some really fast sprinters in their team. We know Marta Lack can finish off well, but also Ariana Fidanza. She started the season off really well last year down in Spain. So I think they're probably the team to beat here. You know, if we look at the scenario of what's playing out on the road with Cedrine Cabal in this breakaway group, and then the team behind not having to do any work, but still with some fast finishers, strong finishers. Marta Lack, who could launch an early move, you know, with that sort of 1-2 kilometres to go, and then Ariana Fidanza, who could finish it off for them in the sprint.
12 kilometres to go as we are in the outskirts of the city of Valencia here in Spain as we approach the finish of the Vuelta CV Feminas, the 1.1 UCI women's road race It is Movistar team, the World Tour team, the local team on the front of this chase group at the moment. And we have just seen the gap come under that 10-second mark. We're now seeing 8 seconds, 7 seconds. Still 12 kilometres of racing to go. But now we are in the city of Valencia. The roads are getting more technical. This is getting very exciting, Danny.
Yeah, it's going to be agonising, isn't it? But what it does do is it means that the riders behind are going to have to be super attentive at this moment in time, because if it does come back together, I would predict there'll be counter-attacks straight away, especially with this sort of parkour, with the twists and turns, the ups and downs through these city roads.
Certainly we'll back up to 12 seconds now. We're going to see that timing gap ebb and flow as these riders go in and out of these corners. Very technical. Of course, this is a race that we're not starting where we finished. These will be new roads for these riders. We've not raced on this part of the course already yet today. So it's about being very vigilant, watching out for those signs, watching out for those turns. Up to 12, 13 seconds, again 11k to go. I think the bunch are playing a very smart game here at the moment. They do not want to catch them early and leave themselves open to the might of teams like Ceratizat WNT, Cofidis, who have multiple riders in that group who could potentially try and counter-attack. This is our bunch, and you can see a few little gaps opening up between the wheels here, Danny. Could that be riders struggling, or is it more just the nature of the twists and turns that we've had?
Yeah, I think it's probably the ricochet effect through the twists and turns that we've got, to be honest. You can see it bunch back together now as they've, been on this longer stretch of road here. I think that's why it's important to be well positioned when it is quite a large group. Yes, it is a reduced bunch, but it's still a big group coming into the finish here. So it will save energy to be closer to the front, because then you won't have those big gaps to try and close after every twist, turn or roundabout that the riders are going to have to face here. You can just see a few of the Movistar riders just moving up on the right-hand side of the road there. So we'll have a look when we go back to that shot behind as to who that was and if they're going to try and close this one down quickly, or actually, like we keep saying, if they're going to dangle these three out just to try and eliminate the opportunity for any counter-attacks. With still 10 kilometres of racing to go, it's still a long way to the finish line. So those teams without sprinters that don't want this to come down to a bunch sprint will try and race aggressively. Ooh. They will try and use strength in numbers crash.
And we've had a crash there on that corner. So for our 3 breakaway riders, it was Caroline Anderson of the Liv Alula Jayco team who has come down on that corner. Cedrine Carball is carrying on. Anderson has now been caught by the bunch. Narrow section of road there, tight corner, and she has unfortunately come down. Absolute heartbreak for her, riding ever so well in that breakaway. And this is a tricky situation now, Danny. If you're Cedrine Carball, what do you do here? Do you carry on? Do you wait for Julie Bago, the junior world road race champion, who's a matter of meters behind you, or what do you do?
Yeah, no, you can't wait. Absolutely not. You can see the bunch breathing down the neck of Julie Bago here as that crash has really disrupted this trio out there. So for Cedrine Carball, she's just got to go into time trial mode. We know she can time trial. We know how strong she is. She was the young rider that came out on top in the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift last year. She's had some amazing results over the last couple of seasons, and she started the season off really strongly. So for Cedrine Carball here, she just needs to go as hard as she can, essentially. She will keep looking back as to see where Julie Bago is, but what a shame. This is Julie Bago, so our junior world champion. So she'll be doing the same. Ultimately now, it has really disrupted that trio up ahead, and you can see those gaps. So still a little gap here to Julie Bago out in front.
Yeah, and that, it looks like a relatively small gap in terms of time. It is a small gap, but that is it is a big gap to close when you have been, racing on the limit for so many kilometres. They went clear on our climb with about 45 kilometres to go, so it's been a long time for our trio who have been out there with just the 3 of them. But still, Cedrine Carball, the 22-year-old from France, the Ceratizat WNT pro cycling team, is continuing solo. You can just see her trying to get in this aero position here, Danny. How much will she be looking at the numbers on her computer, and how much will this just be an all-out effort?
Yeah, I mean, she's national time trial champion, so I think when you're a time trialist, you really know how to measure your effort. You know what power you'd be able to sustain for the duration of the race that's left to go. So for her, that's 9 kilometres. She'll know what sort of power she can produce and sustain on the flat road. So I think she'll be using it a lot, actually. I think it's really touch and go whether you go into the red. There's a really fine line of that threshold and not going over it, because ultimately if you go too deep, then you can absolutely blow your doors off, which is what we like to say in cycling. But she'll just be riding on that limit to try and do everything she can to stay away here.
She certainly will. So we're just seeing Julie Bago here of the Cofidis women's team about to get caught by what remains of our peloton, our chasing group here, which is about 20 to 25 riders strong. Just got WNT moving towards the front of this group here now. They know that it is just their rider, their lone leader at the moment, but they are going to be very ready if anybody makes a counter move. Jelena Erich there from Movistar, just looking around, seeing who's keen to put in the work. But you can see here, Danny, for the first time in a long time, the bunch is sort of spread across the road here. It's not in one long line.
No, and you can see them all looking at each other as if to say, who's going to chase here, who is up to in this scenario. So this is going to give Cedrine Cabal a really great opportunity now to just eke that gap out a little bit more. You can see on her stem there the key points in the race. So generally the soigneurs or someone of the staff of the team will have that job to make sure that the riders have got that information printed out to stick on their handlebars, so they can really keep tabs of when they need to be most attentive in the race, when the technical parts are coming up, how long the climbs are. Some riders like to write it out themselves because they feel that that would get more etched into their brains, and the knowledge of the race would be more by doing that homework themselves. So good to see that on the stem of Cedrine Cabal as well. But she is a rider that knows herself very, very well. Her physicalities of a bike rider. She'll be trying to get as aerodynamic as she possibly can in these final 7 kilometers of racing. Again, she's a strong time trialist here, so she knows what she has to do, but the question marks of whether that group behind can get themselves together and chase and close that gap down.
Yes, we can see now on this shot that group is more in the one string. There was that brief moment where it spread out across the road, and that hesitation really gave a number of seconds to Cedrine Cabal, who was, it was less than 10 seconds at one point, but now she's got 17 seconds with 7 kilometers to go, just going up to 8 seconds there. Quite key to seeing Jelena Erich there come to the back of this group. We've also got Yulia Birikova, the Human Powered Health, at the back here. Lauren Stevens for Siniska Cycling, the eldest rider in this race at 37 years old. She was on the back of that group as well. And it is 20 seconds now for our lone leader. Sarah Tizat have got at least 2 riders in this group behind. I have seen Ariana Fidanza and Jaska Luska of Sarah Tizat.
Yeah, they also have Marta Lack as well, and she's had a strong start to the season. She finished 4th on the first stage of, again, Challenge Mallorca, the first race, I should say, because they were 3 individual races. So again, we know she's got a fast finish on her. But I question whether they'll be riding for Ariana Fidanza if it does again come down to a finish. But as we get closer and closer to the line, it's looking really good here for Cedrine Cabal.
It really is. So we've seen some of the Cofidis team come towards the front here, as well as the Arkea B&B Hotels team making their presence known. Cofidis have a number of riders here. Of course, it was Julie Bago who was in that breakaway, but they still have Victoire Berthaud, Spella Kern and Hannah Ludwig, I believe, are in this group. So they'll be thinking, what can they do now? Because the whole time up to this point, they've had that rider in that breakaway. They've not been having to do the work. They've been able to sit in and rest their legs, bide their time. But now they are coming towards the front, knowing that the wind is potentially rising away from them here. Five kilometers of racing to go. 16 seconds, 15 seconds even for our lone leader, Cedrine Cabal of Sarah Tizat at WNT Pro Cycling Team. She has been away since 45 kilometers to go, cresting the summit of our first category climb with 2 companions. Unfortunately, Caroline Anderson crashed, and Julie Bago is now back in the chasing peloton as well. So here we have it, 1 lone leader inside the final 5K. We are coming into the city of Valencia, the end of this 93-kilometer UCI 1.1 race here this morning in Spain. And at the moment, we have the Cofidis team on the front of this chase group, closely marked by Sarah Tizet WNT teammates, who, of course, have Cedrine Cabul up the road, but they are there and they are poised and they are waiting to see if anybody tries anything here. So we've got at least 2 riders from Sarah Tizet who are sitting in 2nd and 3rd at the moment. And once again, Danny, we've got one of these wider roads very open here for the chasing group.
Yeah, so this isn't going to help Cedrine Cabul, but she's clearly got the power and the strength here to hold off this chase group. She's doing a brilliant job. She did the right thing when Caroline Anderson crashed. Unfortunately, it did split up that trio that we had out front, but she's decided to fully commit to this and try and go solo to the line. 4 kilometers in 15 seconds is doable, especially if that group behind start looking at each other.
Yes, it's going to be a very tough ask now, but it's going to be about full commitment from that group behind. But as we mentioned, Cabul has at least 2 teammates who are poised on that wheel, ready to politely cause any disruption in that chase group. Just seeing a few corners here now as we're coming in towards the centre of Valencia. Again, out of sight, definitely not out of mind at the closing stages of this race with such a small gap. But any turn in the road here really helping Cedrine Cabul as she tries to solo to this finish. And what a result it would be, Danny. It's been so long that she's been away. As I say that now, look at the group behind, and we now have 3 riders from Movistar at the front of this race.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether it's too late, though, for the team of Movistar. I think, crash on that corner. Looked like Marta Lack there that came down.
We have got a crash, and it is number 15, Marta Lack, the rider that you had mentioned, Danny, as could be a real strong rider in the finish here. As unfortunately crashed here is her teammate that is, of course, up the road. Bad news to Sarah Tizet WNT. She was a brilliant backup in this group. She still has another teammate there who's currently sitting in just about 3rd wheel, as she follows the team of Movistar, who are now on the front chasing, and it is a 12-second gap. And look, here we are on the seafront, even though it's not a particularly windy day here in Valencia. This is a very exposed section of road. How will this affect things now, Danny, with a little bit of wind?
Yeah, it will affect things slightly, but they're going to just be super motivated now. They are. For Cedrine Cabul, she is absolutely in sight and in the mind of these riders. I'm questioning whether Movistar have left it too late. I did say I was surprised that they didn't put more riders on the front slightly earlier. It'll either be time to perfection, or I think there'll be question marks on the commitment of this chase earlier on in the race. But for Cedrine Cabul, she's in that aero tuck position, and it's absolute carnage behind, as we've seen some riders just chipping off the front here.
Yes, we've just got some splits in this chase group behind. So that crash for Marta Lack, she was the only one that came down, but potentially causing disruption within that group with riders losing wheels. So you can just see here the spread in this shot of the riders who have got a gap now on the rest of our group. Here is our leader, Cedrine Cabul, 2 kilometers to go, 13 seconds. We then have what looks to be 3 riders who have got a small gap over the rest of the group. We've got here the Movistar team, the UAE development team, and we have Human Powered Health. Inside our final 2 kilometers of racing. This is really touch and go, but disruption in that group behind could spell disaster for the chase. And this is exactly what Cabul will want. She will want this disruption from behind. We've got Human Powered Health, who did so much work as soon as we came on air, trying to bring this group back. No representation from Sarah Tizet WNT in this small group of 3 riders here. Olivia Barrel from Movistar in 2nd wheel there, as we see another shot of Cedrine Cabul out the saddle. Last big effort here. She'll be waiting for that 1 kilometer to go side. It has been so touch and go for so long. Is she going to get caught by this chase group? But ever so close now to seeing that red kite marking that 1 kilometer to go.
Cheers, and that will be a very nice sight indeed. There it is, 1 kilometer to go for Cedrine Cabul, our up-and-coming French rider. Was so dominant in the youth rankings last year, and she's coming out with fine form for the 2024 season. A couple of bends to go for Cedrine Cabul. She sweeps right with 700 to go, and then the road will bear left with 400 meters to go, where she'll be able to see that finish line up ahead.
She certainly will. So you can hear the whistles there. Another crash on the corner inside the final kilometre here. We've got a few bits of road furniture. And again, disruption in the group behind. We still have 3 riders clear that are going for that second place in this race. Olivia Barrel of Movistar leads this group. We've got the UAE development team as well, but it is Cedrine Kabul who is coming solo into the finish. Inside the final few meters, she has battled for ever such a long time in a group of 3 for ever so long. Now going solo following that crash, approaching 200 meters to go now. Such strong chasing behind. Touch and go for ever so long, but she comes in solo towards this finish. Chance to look over her shoulder there, just check, is she completely clear? Has she got time to celebrate? And there we see that smile. She knows she's done it. Plenty of time to celebrate. Ceretis at WNT taking the win here. Vuelta CV Feminas goes to Cedrine Kabul. Sprint for the line. That was just human-powered health that took that, and then we have the sprint there for 4th place over the line as well. We'll wait for confirmation of our 2nd and 3rd place in that race, but what a finale we've had there, Danny. It was touch and go for so long. Multiple crashes in that final 5K, causing all sorts of disruption from behind. But despite that, can't take anything away from Cedrine Kabul, can we?
No, absolutely not. You know, she just showed what she could do on that climb. Unfortunately, we didn't see the Frontiera climb, but she clearly had fantastic legs. She was in that group with Julie Bago and Caroline Anderson. All 3 of them worked incredibly hard. It was a real shame that Caroline Anderson crashed on that corner, but Cedrine Kabul did the right thing. She battled on, she put her head down. She's got that time trial power, and she held off that chase group behind. And it was absolute carnage, wasn't it? There were multiple crashes on some of those corners as we came closer, which did just disrupt that chase somewhat, but not taking anything away from this French rider. What a finish. What a way to start the season.
What a finish indeed. And of course, like you say, there were multiple crashes towards the end there. Marta Lack, her teammate for Ceretis at WNT, being one of the riders to come down. So we'll wait to hear if she is okay. But a technical run in there after a very fast, wide run off the mountains towards Valencia, which really played into the hands of the chase group. It was that technical finish, which, as you were saying, really played into the hands of Cedrine Kabul, being away on her own, taking her own line around all of those corners, not needing to worry about any of the carnage going on behind. Pick her own line. And here we see celebration from her teammates.
It's always a really nice sight to see. Cycling is such a team sport. We only get to see the winner on the podium, but of course it's generally down to the whole team, the efforts of the whole team from the start to the finish of the race.
There we go, that is the finish shot. Cedrine Kabul takes the Vuelta CV Feminas. Here we're seeing these replay shots of that victory for Cedrine Kabul. Such a battle all the way to the line there, touch and go for ever so long. I really enjoyed that. That was a spectacular finale. We knew that the key part was going to be that climb, which we unfortunately didn't see the coverage of. But wow, the final 30K of racing did not disappoint, did it?
No, it didn't at all. It was a really touch and go, wasn't it? Great to see that breakaway riding together. And then, of course, a solo finish from Cedrine Kabul.
Well, Cedrine, congratulations for this victory. We saw the emotions at the finish line. Tell us, first of all, a little analysis of how's been this day for you.
Yeah, at the beginning of the race, the goal was to have a nice placement before the second big climb. So, yeah, we have some girls in the team who really did a big job for put us in the best position. We were all in front at the beginning of the 5K climb. And then, I don't know, like in my head, I just thought I needed to do the tempo in the climb and not to turn my face. And then after 3K, I just turned and there were only 4 or 5 girls in my wheel. And 2K later, only 2. Then I thought, okay, now the goal is to go to the end in a breakaway. And the 2 girls in the breakaway were really doing a good job also. We were really, we had the same goal. Then there were a crash at few kilometers from the finish, and I was alone in front, and the goal was just to do a time trial to the end.
Tell us about the emotions. I mean, important victory, and also at the beginning of the season, that says a lot about the winter, I mean, the work that you've been doing in winter. So how are you feeling this precise moment?
Yeah, for sure, it's really reassuring me to can do this result now and to prove I'm in shape, and yeah, also to prove that we have really a super nice collective, a super nice team, and it's really a team victory with this team spirit. They were as happy as me, so it makes me more happy again.
And what's next for you?
Next race will be the 3-day of Valencia. Then Strade Bianche, will be one of my big goals of the start of the season.
Good luck there and congratulations. Enjoy this one.
Thanks.
Well, it was brilliant to hear there from our race winner and her talk us through that climb as well, which we unfortunately didn't see coverage of today, but brilliant to see or hear how strong she was on that climb. And just confirmation there, the second place was to Marit Rijmakers of Human Powered Health, and Federica Pier Giovanni of UAE Development Team took third. Then it was Olivia Barrel in fourth, and Ariana Fidanza from Ceratizat WNT, who won the sprint from the small group, what was left of the peloton behind, for fifth place. Just seeing some more final shots here of this spectacular win by Cedrine Cabal, who said she's targeting the 3 days of Valencia next, but then Strade Bianche will be the really big one that she is targeting for the early season. She certainly got the form here. What a fantastic finale to this race we retreated to. So touch and go for so long, but she hung on to take that spectacular victory there. Marit Rijmakers sprinting to second behind her there for Human Powered Health. Spectacular victory. The Vuelta CV Feminas 2024 goes to Cedrine Cabal.
Sit down or are you okay if it's in English?
Enjoying seeing some more slow-mo shots of Cedrine Cabal. I think we're going to have some more interviews coming up.
Really?
Just checking if we are able to speak in English to our riders that are going to be interviewed. Just seeing some replay shots here. We were able to see the final 30 kilometers of racing. This was the situation at 16k to go, 22 seconds for our breakaway. Was the intermediate sprint there, not really contested by our breakaway riders. In our final 10 kilometers, there's an agonizing crash there for Caroline Anderson of Liv Alula Jaco, who was part of this trio. Also disrupting Julie Bago there, who unfortunately got back trying to trace Cedrine Cabal, but not quite able to close that gap. And you can see that chase group rushes past Caroline Anderson, and she's not able to get back with them. Julie Bago tries to chase, but Cedrine Cabal is solo, and that disruption from behind Took the gap up to 20 seconds, but inside the final 5K, it was a crash for Marta Lack on that corner. Disruption again into the chase group from behind. As we approach the 1 kilometre to go, it was Cedrine Cabal of Certes at WNT who was still away solo. The chase group from behind is disrupted, and we have a small group of 3 who have just about broken clear, led by Olivia Barrel here of Movistar, joined as well by Marit Rijmakers and Pierre Giovanni of the UAE development team. But coming into the finish, Cedrine Cabal has plenty of time to look around, realise that she is well clear and able to celebrate this fantastic victory here in this UCI 1.1 race. What a strong opener to her season. It's her 3rd day of racing. She took part in 2 of the races out in Mallorca, the Challenge Mallorca events, which are new to the women's calendar this year. So I would say, Danny, Spain really raising their game on the amount of women's events they're hosting. As I say, that we're about to hear from Olivia Barrel of the Movistar team. She is about to give us an interview. She finished in 4th place today.
Well, Olivia, tell us about this race. It was a tough climb, as we knew, but all seemed under control, though, kind of.
Under control, yeah, I guess. We wanted to do the sprint with Arlenis, but then the final was like really hectic. So, yeah, it was a bad final.
Yeah, when I say under control, it's because you have 20 seconds behind Cedrine. It seems possible to come back, but the final was really tricky, really slippery. There were crashes. It's really what impede the chase, I guess.
Yeah, the crashes really impeded the chase, and it was like really hectic, like I was saying, because if I was chasing and there was crashes behind and my teammates were in it, I didn't know. It was like 2 kilometers to go, so in my mind our sprinter was behind me, so that's why I was pushing so much, but then there was nobody. So yeah, unfortunately it was just miscommunication today, but we'll learn from that for the future.
And how was the sensation for this start of the season?
Yeah, good sensations for the start of the season, and we're trying to work a lot as to form a new group because we're a lot of new riders. So that's the main focus, and I think that we're doing really well on all our goals.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So that was interesting, Danny, hearing from Olivia Barrel talking about a lot of new riders in their team and focusing on working together, new goals, of course, with the retirement of Annemiek van Vleuten as well.
Yeah, and it takes time to gel together as a unit and work out how riders like to be managed from a staff point of view, but also riders and how they like to be communicated, how best to communicate. Riders like different things if they're leaders or domestiques within the group. So unfortunately for the team, lack of motivation, and there were big question marks over how much of control they were in. You know, I think if I were part of that team, I'd question whether they actually could have taken up a bit more of the chase earlier on in the race. They left it quite late, but of course those crashes did disrupt their chase somewhat. They were working for Arlena Sierra, but unfortunately got distance in the final.
Yeah, but it's always a gamble, isn't it? And we saw an awful lot of work go in from the Human Powered Health team, who has also missed out on that breakaway, and we're clearly keen to bring it back earlier on when we first came on air. Movistar just sitting back ever so slightly, but as Olivia Barrel was saying there, she was working for their sprinter, Arlena Sierra, who we know is very quick in these finishes, but of course, chaotic finish, getting distance. And as she said, you know, it was chaotic out there, but you're right, Danny, it was a gamble by the Movistar team. Didn't pay off on this occasion. Strong sprint there for Marit Rijmakers, who took 2nd place on the line. I think for me, what's fascinating about that race, Danny, is the gap that we had, you know, down to less than 10 seconds, but Cabal still managing to hold on to that.
Absolutely, and we can't take anything away from her, because I would question whether even if there weren't crashes in the final, I think she still would have stayed away, looking at how strong she looked in those final few kilometres. So actually I think the chase and bunch left it too late, because even before any of those crashes, the gap was still upwards of kind of 15 seconds at that point.
And we are now going to have our podium ceremony here in Valencia. First up in 3rd place is Federica Pier Giovanni of the UAE development team. Just 22 years old, but a very promising young rider, very strong climber. It's her second day of racing this year, making it onto the podium. And here we have Marit Rijmakers of Human Powered Health, taking second place today, able to win that sprint from that small group of three that were chasing our race leader.
Del Consejo Superior de Deporte, José Manuel Rodríguez, de la Concejala de Deportes, Educación e Igualdad, Rocío Gil, de Victoria Soltero, representante de Tuagua, para recibir aquí a la
ganadora de la
edición número 6 de la UCI Feminas, Gran Premio Tuagua, cuenta con solamente 22 años. Ganadora del Campeonato Nacional de Francia, categoría junior, ganadora del Tour de Normandía. Vaya actuación, nos ha brindado un fuerte aplauso para Cédric Clermaol, del equipo Ferrati Fit, ganadora de la carrera.
And here is our race winner, Cédric Clermaol of France, the Ceratizet WNT Pro Cycling Team. 22 years old, taking a win on her third day of racing in this 2024 season. The national time trial champion of France, the youth classification winner at the Tour de France Femmes avec Swift in 2023. Such a promising young talent, delivering here with a solo victory to open up her account for 2024. Winning by 3 seconds in the end from Rijmakers and Pier Giovanni on the line, having been away for more than 45 kilometres, most of that with 2 companions, and then solo inside that final 10 kilometres all the way to the line.